Hello, I'm Joseph Dillard. Welcome to the Integral Deep Listening video curricula. Sometimes you will have a strong desire to do something that you are sure is assertive. For example, you may feel a strong desire to explain yourself to someone whom you are sure misunderstands or is attacking you. The fact that you have a strong desire is a bright, flashing red light that is screaming, "Danger! Drama!" You will tell yourself that you are being assertive by giving that person a piece of your mind, explaining yourself, or telling them how screwed up they are. When you are just feeling victimized, and you are jumping into the role of persecutor, with the rationalization that you are really helping them. A more assertive approach is to resist the urge to explain and defend. Instead, repeat what the other said and ask questions. This not only stalls for time while you cool down and collect your wits, it also gives you more information while allowing them a chance to hear a paraphrase of what they said. This often leads them to realize they were unclear or aggressive, leading them to diffuse the potential confrontation themselves. Learning assertiveness toward others is important because, as we've seen in another video, changing the subject in a conversation is typically a passive-aggressive, non-assertive strategy. Most literature on assertiveness focuses on relationships. This is important because for most people, most of the time, who we think we are is determined by our relationships with others. We have to become rather mature to shift our self-worth from a dependency upon the context of our surrounding culture to interior measures of self-worth. The best that most of us can do in our lives is to become more assertive in our relationships with others. Assertiveness that focuses on relationships, however, can be superficial, phony, and manipulative. Think of politicians, bankers, valedictorians, lawyers, CEOs, and those who rise to the top echelons of power and wealth in almost all societies. These people are definitely assertive in that they take both the needs of various constituencies as well as their own needs into account. However, the level of personal needs that they consider are often superficial. How to win the approval of others. How to get people to buy their services. Assertiveness is defined in terms of others in such cases. In relation to oneself, there is an awareness of the goals that further our own waking agenda and the steps taken to attain them. However, this is a very superficial form of self-assertiveness because it is passively dismissive or unaware of the needs of our own emerging potentials and our life compass. The pursuit of such goals generally involves subordinating those internal voices that do not actively support finance, power, and status goals. In other words, most of us are self-persecuting and aggressive toward our core emerging potentials and life compass. Not only is the concept of self-assertiveness at such a depth not normally considered, the possibility of assertiveness in dreams is deemed meaningless, delusional, or foolish. Assertiveness in relationships is superficially about speaking up for what you want and need. More fundamentally, it is about coming to agreement about what are assertive behaviors in relationships and establishing rules to encourage them while discouraging non-assertive behaviors. Examples of non-assertive behaviors in relationships include interrupting, being late, not following through with commitments, changing the subject, yelling, name-calling, uninvited physical contact, walking out, monopolizing conversation, taking things personally, and explaining instead of listening. The assertive antidotes to these examples that need to be agreed to by those you deal with include not interrupting, being on time, following through on commitments, not changing the subject, lowering a voice volume when requested, stopping using terms others consider derogatory, stopping any touching that is not desired, not walking out before setting up a time for addressing the issue again within the next 24 hours, staying succinct, pausing after each sentence or two to allow the other person to speak, remembering that over 90% of everything that people say is about themselves, not about you, and resisting the impulse to offer explanations in the understanding that these are generally heard as excuses. These are basic rules of interpersonal assertiveness. If you don't take the time to establish them, it is only a matter of time until misrepresentation will cause someone to accuse the other of unfairness. Assertiveness in relationships also involves developing self-definitions of assertiveness rather than accepting the opinions of others. However, most self-definitions of assertiveness are the internalizations of such role models as sports heroes, actors, teachers, politicians, historical figures, and spiritual gurus. These all present idealized models, which are fictional constructs. We generally only know the plastic and authentic public personas of these people and model our concept of assertiveness after that, which is not about us, our emerging potentials, or our life compass. For that matter, most people neither understand these concepts nor care about them. In fact, without experience interviewing emerging potentials, most people confuse adolescent mock assertiveness with genuine assertiveness. The difference is that adolescents are sure that they know what they want and that they are being assertive. In actuality, they do not know who they are, and they are imitating people that they think are successful in the hope that the graft will take, that other people will buy the act and give them a degree of the respect that resembles that which they see their heroes receiving. Learning assertiveness with yourself is important because assertiveness in relationships without assertiveness toward ourselves is superficial, because we remain passive-aggressive. Those who have the finger on the nuclear trigger pride themselves on having little to no self-awareness. The public lets them get away with this, defending self-awareness as a lack of toughness and empathy as somehow a bad thing. Self-reflectiveness has been turned into a political weakness by the popular press and culture. Therefore, awareness or concern for dreams is out of the question. That citizens worldwide elect such superficial people lacking in self-awareness is a reflection of the lack of self-awareness we, the electorate, have toward ourselves. Passive thoughts and feelings are habitual, predictable, familiar, and reinforcing of our status quo. They don't involve listening. Aggressive thoughts and feelings involve repression of other points of view. They lack creativity. They don't involve listening either. How do you tell the difference between passive and aggressive thoughts and feelings on the one hand, and assertive thoughts and the feelings on the other? If either involve cognitive distortions, script injunctions, roles in the drama triangle, or defense mechanisms, then they are not likely to be assertive thoughts or feelings, regardless of what we think or whether someone we admire is doing it. For example, if you have a political hero that is killing other people, he is in the role of the persecutor. If you decide to become like him or her, you will, at best, develop a plastic, superficial, inauthentic, brittle caricature of assertiveness that may impress, but will not gain you any lasting respect or genuine self-development. The importance of dream assertiveness has to do with building an internal support system, or sangha, that is inherently assertive to counterbalance the influence of a generally drama-addicted external world. Ideal interviewing develops this support system by accessing emerging potentials that are assertive, in that they are not afraid. They're not driven by reactivity and emotions to the exclusion of rationality. Instead, they tend to use reason to direct emotions, and beyond that, to integrate the two into a transrational synthesis. What does dream assertiveness look like? Superficially, it involves standing up to perceived dream threats. However, this is only a first step. More importantly, it involves asking questions of dream characters and object and listening while suspending judgment within dreams. This is a much more sophisticated understanding of dream assertiveness because it is not about imposition of your priorities on dream characters, which is aggressive. You are passive in most of your dreams in several ways. Not realizing that you are asleep and dreaming is passive. Not questioning the assumptions of the dream is passive. For instance, if you have paws instead of hands and continue to think you are awake, that's passive. Not questioning your assumptions within the dream is also passive. You assume that because something looks like a threat and acts like a threat, that it is a threat. This is passive. It isn't assertive. Waking up in a dream and changing it according to your desires is aggressive, in that you're not listening to what the characters in the dream are saying or doing. You have suspended your objectivity in favor of aggressive self-assertion. There is a time for self-assertion and initiative in dreams, and it comes after you listen and get the facts. Dream assertiveness is not simply taking action, but waking up. However, if you learn to wake up in dreams, there is no assurance that you will do so in your thoughts and waking life. You need to learn and practice assertiveness skills in all three realms. IDL Dream Yoga teaches that if you want genuine, lasting assertiveness, you have to cultivate it in all three realms. That is why it addresses cognitive distortions, the drama triangle, script analysis, goal setting, defense mechanisms, meditation, and interviewing. These all address building assertiveness in one or another of the three life realms. Learning to be assertive in your dreams is important because without doing so, you will eventually undercut your assertiveness in your relationships and revert to habit. A good example of this would be President George Bush Jr. He was proud of his role as the decider, standing up to terrorists and pushing through his agenda of tax cuts for the rich. He was, in his mind, assertive. Was he? What he called assertive, other people might call persecuting. Work on the conservative brain has demonstrated that policy decisions of conservatives such as Bush are driven largely by fear, which means they are limbic, pre-rational, and pre-personal impulses, masquerading as mature and responsible responses. This research is based on MRI studies that reveal patterns of brain activity that are reflective of thoughts and feelings that are reactive. If Bush's thoughts and feelings are not assertive, then one would surmise that his dreams are not as well. Assertiveness requires both permission and practice. Most of us as children were scripted to be obedient, which meant to either be unaware of our needs or subordinate them to others. We weren't given permission to be assertive, nor did we learn to give ourselves permission to do so. Recognizing and outgrowing your childhood and socio-cultural scripting is assertive, and it is even more assertive to modify it based on the input of interviewed emerging potentials and your life compass. Monitoring and freeing yourself from cognitive distortions, biases, and logical fallacies is assertive. Setting long-term and short-term goals and intentions for the major areas of your life is assertive. Practicing triangulation is assertive. Setting intention with pranayama and at the beginning of your meditation and sticking to them is assertive. Repeating your statement of intent is assertive. Becoming high-scoring emerging potentials while you are involved in relevant daily activities, dreaming or meditating, is assertive. Witnessing yourself meditating is assertive. We also were never taught the difference between passivity, assertiveness, and aggression. And without knowing these distinctions, being assertive typically feels aggressive, and aggression can easily be rationalized as assertiveness. Ideal statement of intent, which is explained in another video, is an assertive statement, It is the promotion of a worldview, a set of ideas, and a plan of action that are all designed to be assertive, but with a different definition of assertiveness. From the perspective of IDL, actions that align with consensual preferences of emerging potentials are assertive. Notice that this is an operational definition of assertiveness. Emerging potentials express preferences when you interview them. Basing your life on the preferences of one of them may be assertive, but not in the sense meant here. You would be changing your priorities based on listening to those of an emerging potential, but utilized alone, its recommendations could be unrealistic, partial, or regressive. However, when you interview a number of emerging potentials, look for patterns of consensus among them, and let your waking priorities reflect those, that is an ideal definition of assertiveness. Well, I hope this has given you something to chew on to help you to delineate between aggression, passivity, and assertiveness. You will find the entire IDEO video curricula at integraldeeplistening.com. Thanks for watching. See you next time.